We are the National Lottery Heritage Fund. We fund projects connecting people with the UK's heritage. Projects that value, care for and sustain heritage for everyone across the UK, now and in the future. Heritage can mean different things to different people, but heritage is what is important to you. We don't define heritage, we simply see it as anything from the past that you value and want to pass on to future generations. We support a wide range of heritage, from museums, libraries and archives, to historic buildings, from nature and habitats, to our industrial legacy. From cultural traditions, stories and memories, to celebrations and more. So, who do we fund? For grants from £10,000 to £250,000, we accept applications from not-for-profit organisations, such as charities, trusts, community or voluntary groups, charitable incorporated organisations, community interest companies, parish councils, town councils, faith-based or church organisations, local authorities and other public sector organisations. Private owners of a heritage asset, for example a building, land, an object or a collection, where public benefit can demonstrably outweigh any private gain. And partnerships. We class a partner as another organisation or third-party body that is integral to the delivery of your project. Organisations need to have a bank account, a governing document, and 2 or more members that aren't related or living at the same address. If after reading the application guidance on our website you're still not sure if you're eligible, please contact your local team. If you're struggling to explain your heritage, either the heritage itself or the importance of it to your community, there's a great section on our website which offers some tips and questions to help you more fully understand your heritage. At this point, it's useful to know that we cannot fund any works that would be considered your organisation's statutory responsibility, any existing costs or any activity that has taken place before the grant is awarded, or a project that promotes the cause or beliefs of political or faith organisations.
Blythe Toolship was set up 15 years ago as a response to Blythe being in the worst 10% of deprived areas in the UK with 4th generation unemployment, and we wanted to inspire people. Over the years we've had 4 bids that we've won from the National Lottery Heritage Fund, and each one has been transformational in a different way.
Our project, Farm to Fabric, received £16,500 in order to work at Glenside Farm, Cumber CIC in Northern Ireland. We take the wool from the sheep on the farm and we process it and we create craft-based wool products. It is so exciting to be able to do this on a farm with the fleece from the sheep and to help people to see a heritage process that is lost in this part of the world.
I'm John Geraint. I've been working with Rhondda Radio, the Valley's community station, to deliver the Rhondda Heritage Project. We got an £85,000 grant to deliver a series of storytelling workshops with local people in which they talked about their own sense of their Rhondda heritage. We were able in our workshops to give ordinary people the confidence to express themselves, to talk about their family memories, to talk about what heritage meant to them, to talk about the history of their own valleys.
We received £46,000 from the National Lottery Heritage Fund to deliver a community engagement oral history project within Gilsland. It focused on electronic music pioneer Delia Derbyshire and her life in Gilsland once she moved here after leaving the BBC Radiophonic Workshop. Our project strongly aligned with community engagement. We really wanted to engage our community in the heritage of electronic music and Delia.
We are the 2874 Trust, a charity preserving heritage engineering skills using the restoration of a historic steam locomotive, number 2874, as our training platform. So far, over 40 people of all genders, both young and old, have already taken part in the programme and are using their skills to ensure our industrial heritage can remain in use for future generations.
Hopefully you now have a better idea of the types of organisations and projects we can fund. This next section should help you understand if National Lottery Heritage grants are suitable for your organisation and your project idea. Projects must have a clear plan with a defined start, middle and end. The length of your project must be appropriate to your heritage and what you plan to deliver for the people taking part. For example, projects that focus on nature may need to be seasonal and therefore longer than average, or a project working with underserved communities may need more time to embed partnerships and build trust with participants. But overall, projects can last up to 5 years. There's no deadline for applications between 10,000 to 250,000, so don't rush. Submit when you're ready and when your application is at its best. If you haven't done so yet, you can use our optional project inquiry service to get feedback on your project idea.
One of the things it took us a little while to learn was the importance of communication with the National Lottery Heritage Fund team. They're there as guardians of the public purse. We knew that and we wanted to respect it. But we also began to realise as the project went on what a wonderful wealth of expertise and experience they have and how that was there to help and support us if we only learned to draw on it. And we did that and we learned a lot through them. And we realised that they're on the same side. They really wanted our project to succeed, and it was wonderful to have that sense of support from them.
Once you submit your application, our checks team will look to see if you've attached the mandatory supporting documents, which we'll tell you more about later in the video, and that they meet our requirements. After you've passed this check stage, one of our investment managers will begin assessing your application. From this point, we aim to give you a decision in 8 weeks. Occasionally, due to high demand or other reasons, it may take longer. If this is the case, we'll let you know. Our investment managers consider all the evidence you provided in your application, and once their assessment is complete, your project will be considered alongside other grant requests in your area or nation. When we've made a decision, an investment manager will get in touch to let you know the outcome of your application. If your application is successful, you'll receive 50% of the grant in advance. Once you've spent and evidenced the first half of your total eligible project costs, we'll give you the next 30% in advance. We'll pay the final 20% of your grant when you've finished your project and sent us a final completion report evidencing the last 50% of spend and your project evaluation.
As part of the application process, we ask who else you've approached for funding. For this reason, we recommend that you consider whether other funders, organisations, or people might be able to support your project. This could include cash or non-cash support. This will help show us that there's an interest in and commitment to your project. While we can fund total project costs, you should still explain why you are unable to raise funds or non-cash contributions from your own resources or other sources, if that's the case. Remember, if you have any questions at any time, please contact your local team.
There are lots of useful resources on our website to help you develop your project and apply for funding. The National Lottery Heritage Grants £10,000 to £250,000 page outlines our funding criteria and how to apply for a grant at this level. There's also a list of the application questions, so you can draft your answers in advance without having to log on to our application portal. Other essential reading includes the Receiving a Grant and Terms of Grant pages, as they will set out what will happen if your grant is awarded and the terms you will need to follow. For example, the Terms of Grant explain the social and ethical standards we expect, how long the terms of grant will last, and even how long you need to keep your project paperwork, as the government can audit us or your project up to 7 years after the project ends. The grant-related documents are relatively short, but include vital information. We also have a good practice guidance section on our website, where you'll find help on topics such as digital, environmental sustainability, inclusion, and organisational resilience.
Some of this guidance is heritage specific, such as landscape, season nature, or intangible cultural heritage. And some is activity specific, such as oral histories or interpretation. So it's worth checking if there's something there that might be useful. All projects we fund must acknowledge our grant, and there's a toolkit on our website that brings together ideas, templates, logos, and guidance on what you might be able to do, proportionate to your grant size. You can find examples of past successful projects in the Projects We've Funded and in the News and Stories section on our website, or via your local In Your Area page. We also recommend that you speak to other groups and organisations that have previously received funding from us. They may be able to offer advice and support, including what did and didn't work so well for them, which can help inform your own project.
Don't be afraid to ask for advice from previous applicants, not just from within your own sector. We learned every bit as much from those who hadn't succeeded as from those who had.
Os ydych yn cynnal prosiect yng Nghymru, rhaid i chi gynnwys y Gymraeg ym mhob agwedd o'ch gwaith. Gofynnwn i chi gynllunio a chyllidebu ar gyfer prosiectau dwyieithog. Cewch ragor o wybodaeth am hyn ar ein gwefan. We know that some people may need additional support to access our materials and complete our application process. We can help with this. Examples of the different types of assistance we can provide and how to request additional support can be found on our website. Please do take some time to consider these resources, as they'll provide you with all the information you need to submit a strong application.
There are 4 principles that guide our decision-making on grant applications. They are saving heritage, protecting the environment, inclusion, access and participation, and organisational sustainability. We see these investment principles as 4 interlinked elements, which work together as the building blocks for strong heritage projects. You must take all 4 principles into account when preparing your application, but the strength, focus and emphasis on each principle is for you to decide and demonstrate. The principles should allow you to apply for what you really need, within a framework that makes for a good application and project, and allow us to understand its strengths and potential.
Be very clear exactly how your project aligns in some way with each of the investment principles. Consider any tweaks to your project that might make for closer alignment, and be sure to include the full costs of every aspect of your programme.
Our first investment principle is saving heritage. We want to support projects that conserve and value heritage for now and the future. We want our support to enable heritage to remain accessible, relevant and sustainable. Through all our grants, we are committed to protecting, conserving and revitalising heritage at risk. By heritage at risk, we mean heritage of all kinds that's in poor condition or at risk of loss, decline, damage, neglect, or simply of being forgotten. We want it to be valued and better understood.
It's up to you to tell us what you want to do and why, and to explain that your project will be high quality. This could be telling us that any conservation work will be professionally delivered, or memories will be collected by trained individuals.
Our next principle is protecting the environment. We want to support projects that reduce adverse environmental impacts and help heritage to adapt to our changing climate. Depending on your type of project, you might consider this principle from a nature and landscape perspective, or from an environmental footprint perspective. Of course, some projects might be doing both. The type of nature and landscape-focused projects, whether rural or urban, that we can support will help habitats and species thrive. reduce and mitigate the impacts of climate change, and help people connect to our unique natural heritage. We want to see landscapes and habitats put into recovery so they support abundant natural heritage and healthy natural systems. And we want to better support people's understanding and connection with nature across towns, cities, and the countryside. This investment principle could also mean measures to reduce any negative environmental impact and your organisation's carbon footprint. If projects involve construction, we will encourage restoration, conservation, and reuse, rather than new build.
Show us that you clearly understand what you're doing to protect the environment and the impact your project can make. We'll look at your application in relation to your vision and the size of the grant you're requesting. For a £10,000 project, this may be simple things like using local suppliers and public transport. If you're requesting a larger grant amount, we might expect you to think about larger measures, such as joining the Fit for Future network. That network and other ideas are described in our Good Practice Guidance.
All of our investment principles apply to a wide range of heritage and activities, and inclusion, access and participation is no exception. We want to involve a more diverse range of people in heritage, see investment in volunteering and more heritage careers. We want to see communities co-creating projects, see inspiring leadership and strong governance, and all sorts of people-driven projects which develop knowledge and skills. We want to help organisations remove barriers to access and participation, particularly for those who are underserved by heritage. This may include creating digital heritage resources, which increase access to heritage information and generate wider reach and greater impact. The vast majority of projects enable communities to explore and share their heritage, enrich lives, and enable everyone's heritage to be recognised. Make sure your application tells us about the things that are specific to your project, rather than your day-to-day business.
We're looking for projects that are engaging, professionally supported, and fit well with your ambitions. It might be useful to tell us if you think your project outputs will be sustainable. For example, will access improvements be permanent? Will a particular activity be delivered by staff in future? Will an exhibition tour local venues?
Our fourth principle is organisational sustainability. This can mean different things to different organisations at different points in their journey. We want to support organisations to develop skills and capacity to ensure a sound long-term future, and encourage heritage investment that benefits communities and economies. This could be through supporting organisations to develop commercial skills and digital skills, or by strengthening their governance and leadership. It's up to you to make the case for what your organisation needs.
We want your project to support your organisational journey and future plans, so please be realistic and describe your needs clearly. You might find it helpful to explore the Organisational Sustainability and Resilience Good Practice Guidance and the Business Support and Enterprise Development Hub on our website as you plan your application. To give you an example of how a project can take into account the 4 investment principles, let's look at the Save Our Steamship project in Scotland. The steamship Sir Walter Scott Trust was awarded £130,000 to carry out essential repairs to the Sir Walter Scott steamer. The pie chart on screen shows you the proportion of each investment principle that was represented within the project. Much of the project involved repairs to the deck to get the ship fully operational again. It also provided 4 fully funded training work placements in partnership with Stirling Community Enterprise and Stirling Council. These offered hands-on experience in traditional skills required to maintain the ship and work in related industries. Happily, once the project finished, the 4 placements became full-time jobs, hence the larger orange Saving Heritage section of the pie chart. The ship's boilers were replaced for more efficient, greener fuel ones to reduce its carbon emissions. This is shown by the green section of the pie chart, which represents protecting the environment. Collaboration with organisations that support and advocate for people with disabilities meant the Sir Walter Scott steamer could cater for a range of access needs, and that interpretation on board was inclusive. This aspect of the project gives us the pink section of the chart, which is inclusion, access and participation. Finally, the Trust's application highlighted how an operational steamer would increase visitors, engagement and income. Plus, there were the placements which turned into full-time jobs, which added to the organisational sustainability, as demonstrated in the chart as the purple section.
Let's look at another case study. On the face of it, this looks like a nature project, but it's a good example of taking all 4 investment principles into account. The Ann Tobar and Brian's Wood Native Woodland project was based in Northern Ireland and aimed to improve people's access and knowledge of natural heritage. The Ann Tobar Community Interest Company was awarded £61,900 to install accessible pathways, railings, seating areas and interpretation and carry out native tree planting activities. The habitat enhancements alongside the tree planting accounts for the sizable proportion of the Protecting the Environment investment principle, which is represented by the green segment. But we felt the core of this project was its people-centred approach. It's inclusive, making access improvements and using its participatory activities to connect people to nature, hence the large pink segment which represents inclusion, access and participation. Some of the specific achievements within this investment principle were that they welcomed over 450 local primary school children to the native woodland located on a 40-acre farm. Activities reached people underserved by natural heritage, such as women aged 55 plus, carers of dependents with disabilities or illness, and families with lower socio-economic backgrounds. Some of the activities provided were nature-based. Others were cultural heritage-based, such as poetry trails, nature trails, and outdoor classrooms in the new seating areas. Year-round activities developed through the project and staff training to deliver online heritage workshops was beneficial for the organisation's sustainability, which is represented by the purple segment. And by improving access, visitor experiences and enhancing the site, they've taken this investment principle into account by increasing understanding and valuing heritage, which is represented in the orange segment.
We recognise that not all plans and activities will fit neatly into a single investment principle box, and that's okay. If an element of your project covers more than one of our 4 principles, let us know. Tell us just once which investment principles are connected. For example,
offering paid traineeships in heritage skills will make participating in heritage more accessible to some people, while also helping you save heritage.
Transforming a derelict or disused heritage space for community use, such as co-working or venue hire, can contribute revenue that supports organisational sustainability.
Hosting virtual meetings to reduce your project's carbon footprint can make participating in your project more accessible to some people. The important thing to remember is that we are looking for good, well-rounded projects with a clear ambition that are based on consultation and with management plans in place. We want to see that your ideas are realistic, achievable, and appropriate for the project, the heritage, and your organisation. The application form is designed to draw out all this information. The more money you are requesting, the more details and information we want to see from you.
We're now going to take a look at the application portal and how you use it to apply for funding for your project. Firstly, you'll need to create an account. You can see the application portal button on the top right of every page on our website. Click that button and then follow the link on the page. You'll need to register your organisation with an email and password. Please use your organisation's legal name as stated on your governing document. You'll only have one email address and password linked with each organisation. When you first register, there are quite a few questions related to your organisation. These require relatively short fact-based answers. Once you've filled in these details, you won't have to repeat them again unless you need to update them.
We recommend that you gather as much information as possible before starting your application so that you have everything you need ready to go. You can prepare by looking at the application questions page on our website. Our application portal should look familiar as it's based on the Government Gateway model and is designed to be intuitive to use. It has one question per page with either free text or multiple choice answers. You can see how many words you have remaining to use, can save as you go along, and you have an option to see the overview of your questions and answers completed so far.
I would say the thing we've learnt is that the planning was essential, and we did that right at the beginning of our application, and it helped us to continue the project in a really close and systematic way over the 12 months.
The application form starts by asking you for your project's vision. Describe what your organisation would like to achieve through your project. You need to answer this relatively briefly. You only have 150 words. We start with this for a good reason. We want to get an overview of your project. We also want to get excited about what you plan to achieve, to feel your motivation and believe that this is the right project at the right time for your organisation. Think of your application form as telling us a story. It should flow and be connected. All the information you provide in the other questions and supporting documents should detail your vision and help us understand that your project is appropriate, realistic and practical. So in this section, tell us what you hope to achieve and what you hope the legacy of your project will be.
At the Heritage Fund, we want to invest in projects that connect people and communities to heritage. So this is an important question. In no more than 500 words, tell us about the heritage you'll focus on as part of this project.
Provide a description of the heritage as it is today. If different types of heritage are involved, then describe each of them. Provide factual information about the heritage. For example, if your project is about heritage that's not physical, such as memories or cultural traditions, tell us about the subject and the time period it covers. If your project is about physical heritage, such as a building, ship, or nature reserve, give us factual information about the asset, its size, when it dates from, the surviving features, its condition, and why it's important to your local area. Tell us if there's any official recognition of this heritage. For example, it may be a listed building. If so, give its grade, or a site of special scientific interest. What is important about the heritage? For example, it may be a source of artistic or architectural interest. Who is the heritage important to? This could include experts and/or the local community. Why is the heritage distinct or unique? What is special about it? How does it relate to other heritage in the local area, across your nation, or the whole of the UK? You don't need to describe anything other than your heritage here. We'll get the remainder of the information we need about your project later. Each question builds on the previous one. For example, the next question asks if your heritage is at risk or is under threat in some way. Here you can select yes or no. If you say yes, a text box for 500 words appears. So you should have enough space to describe both what your heritage is and if it faces any threats.
The project section in the form begins with a set of short factual questions. Project title, start and end date, and location. However, within this section and the following section on need and demand, there are some important questions that will help you show us why we should fund your project.
When you're thinking about your project, it's important to consider as early as possible what will make your project stand out to decision makers. What makes it feel special to you? Why should we fund your project? What needs does it address, or opportunities does it offer? And why is now the right time for your project to happen? Questions such as, have you received any advice from anyone else about this project, can demonstrate any consultation you've done with your local community and who will be involved in your project, so we know you are doing something that's really needed. Details about any specialist advice you've received will show us that your project is appropriate and well planned. We encourage you to talk to people outside your organisation during your project planning process. We also ask, why does your project need to happen? You can use up to 500 words to build on the advice and consultation answer to explain what need and opportunity your project is addressing. Describe who else wants your project to happen and what differences it will make. There might be a particular opportunity you are responding to, like an anniversary, a wider strategy being launched, another project happening in your area, or even the availability of other funding. To answer this question well, you should be thinking about why your project is important to your local community and why they want it to happen. Are there any key dates or anniversaries that your project hopes to celebrate? Include conversations and consultation you've had with other people, organisations, partners, and relevant agencies to show how your project supports local strategies. Are there specific barriers to people engaging with your heritage and opportunities to remove them? Funding availability, or lack of it, may be a need or opportunity, as perhaps it won't be available in the future.
You've established your vision, your heritage focus, the need and demand for your project. So what do you plan to do? In the application form we then ask, tell us what you'll do during your project. There are only 500 words for this answer, just enough to explain the main tasks you're planning. Please provide an overview describing any activities that you'll be doing, events that you'll be hosting, strategies or plans you'll be developing, items or resources that you'll be creating, heritage items or buildings you'll be restoring, habitats you'll be improving. This overview helps us understand what your project is all about. Our assessors will then look to your project plan to review the more detailed information about each element of your project. Your project plan is a vital supporting document. You should include every aspect of your project in as much detail as you can. Be as specific as you can, including names and numbers where possible. It should include the who, what, where information. But this is your document, so there might be additional information you need to provide. Your project plan doesn't have to use the Excel template we provide on our website, but it must include all the information we ask for in the template.
Don't miss the second tab in this template. It shows you what information we need for your project's risk register. We know that all projects face challenges and risks. Tell us about the challenges or risks that you've identified that could have an impact on your project and explain how you'll manage those. We expect to see contingency within your project costs to help manage the challenges or risks that you identify. Your risk register is useful to keep referring to while you deliver your project.
Let's take a closer look at the detail we'd like to see in your project plan. You could say, in May, we're going to recruit a project manager. The task is for the organisation and the project, so we have the best person in the role. The recruiting managers will be our exhibitions curator and a member of the project board, as they have skills in recruitment. We're going to do this at our head office, so that we can demonstrate what our workspace is like and introduce colleagues. We expect to reimburse travel costs for 10 candidates and have an allowance for access and refreshments. This tells us more than May, recruitment, us, a manager, our office, £100, which are weaker answers overall.
It's really important to work in partnership with other organisations. We got a significant amount of help from the John Rylands Institute that holds the Delia Archive, with a lot of support from Dr. David Butler, who manages the archive also. Another organisation that supported us was the Delia Derbyshire Day organisation that gave us some advice, who'd had some successful National Lottery Heritage Fund projects before, and also supported us with information about Delia and where to find things in the process of writing the application.
Our assessors want to see information to illuminate each project task. Admin, governance, evaluation, induction, training, everything. They need to understand and feel confident in what you're planning to deliver. A cost column is included to help you build your budget, to make sure you haven't forgotten anything, and to back up the information in your cost table, so we know why you need the grant. The project plan, project vision, and budget are key parts of your application, so they should mirror each other and flow well. Please work on your project plan and risk register at the same time as your application. Don't leave it until the last minute. Some people even prefer to write these two first, as it can really help you complete the rest of the application form.
Once you understand what you're trying to achieve in detail, you can then start running the numbers, and I would say that that's really important. Getting to know what you can achieve, how you can achieve it, putting together a project plan that outlines what you do at each stage so that you get your sense of whether things are feasible.
Capital works are defined as works that create or improve an asset. These can include physical works to landscapes, nature and buildings, repair, conservation, new build, digitisation, or work to stabilise the condition of objects. Our simple yes/no question allows projects that have no capital work involved to skip ahead. Those of you who are undertaking capital works will be asked to tell us more about your plans.
We need to understand ownership and if any permissions are required. For example, are there any legal aspects we need to know about? If you're doing any conservation work, it's also useful for us to understand the condition of the asset you're working with. You have up to 500 words to tell us about these aspects, and you can upload any supporting documents as evidence, such as a condition survey. You might be expecting these questions if you are repairing a building or doing some habitat improvements, but you might not be expecting to click yes if you want to create a website or an app as part of your project. But in this case, as you're creating an asset, we see it as a capital element in your project.
Digital works are assets you create in a digital format which are designed to give access to heritage. They could also help people engage with and learn about heritage. For example, a collection of digital images or sound files, an online heritage resource or exhibition, or a smartphone app.
Anything you create in a digital format needs to meet our digital requirements, including ensuring that digital outputs you create with grant funding are available, open and accessible. You can read more about our digital requirements and how to meet them on our website. Please read this information thoroughly and share it with anyone who's helping you create your digital assets. In this capital activity section of the form, please also answer yes, even if you're only doing a little bit of capital activity. It's important that our assessors have all the information they need.
Next, you'll find 4 text boxes for each of the 4 investment principles. In under 500 words, tell us how your project takes into account each of the 4 principles. There's also a question on subsidy control. This is less likely to apply in grants of this size, but if in doubt, please seek professional advice.
In the Delivering Your Project section of the form, we want you to demonstrate that your organisation should run this project, with partners if useful, and that you have robust management plans, risk mitigation, and evaluation plans. Your application, along with your project plan and risk register, will all help us understand how you plan to manage your project. What we want to know is, are the people involved in your project experienced? Have they run projects like this before? If not, have you built in the relevant professional support? Are the project management plans logical, timetabled and realistic? And do you have the right support? This could be project partners or other community networks. Have you spoken to similar projects to inform your application? Budget-wise, are you asking for an amount of money you can manage? What do your accounts tell us? Is your partnership fundraising realistic? Can you cash flow the project? And is evaluation planned in this project? You must answer yes. It is a requirement, and we expect to see costs for this in your budget. Dyma hefyd yr adran o'r ffurflen gais, lle rydym yn gofyn a oes unrhyw ran o'ch prosiect yn digwydd yng Nghymru. Os felly, rydym am ddeall sut y byddwch yn defnyddio'r Gymraeg yn eich prosiect, a disgwiliwn weld cynllun o gyllidebu ar gyfer cyfieithu.
Your project costs need to be fully calculated when you apply to us. We cannot offer you more money once your grant is awarded if you've got your costs wrong. Make sure your estimates are realistic and get quotations where you can. Our Procurement Good Practice Guide explains that once awarded, we want to see 3 quotes for any goods, works or services over £10,000. But even under that threshold, you should still consider how to demonstrate good value for money for any cost included. The cost table in the application form is organised using a drop-down list to select a cost heading. If you have plans to recruit a staff member and 2 consultants, you'd add 1 new staff line and 2 professional fees lines to your cost table. There's a description field which helps you explain what the cost is for and how it relates to your heritage and project. Remember, the cost table is seen by assessors and decision makers, so well-explained cost descriptions are important. There are separate tables with drop-down and description fields to help you record your cash and non-cash contributions to the project. Please note that this form is not automated, so check the final figure you're requesting before submitting.
We expect to see a cost for evaluating your project. The amount will depend on the complexity of your project, or if you are paying a professional to deliver the evaluation. There will be a cost even if the evaluation is managed in-house, so please include one. We also expect to see costs for acknowledging your project under the Publicity and Promotion heading. And make sure to include a contingency. This is especially important in the current economic climate. Contingency budgets will be held for if or when you need to use it, and you'll need to request to draw down against that budget heading. Overall, we look at everything in the application: your project vision, how it will be delivered, as well as how much it costs and whether it demonstrates good value for money.
I've always assumed that things will go wrong, so building in extra time, perhaps even 50%, to get things done to cope with things like COVID or people being sick or accidents or any of the other stuff that can get in the way is really essential.
At the end of the application form, you'll see a list of supporting documents. Some say must and are mandatory, and some say if applicable, meaning you need to identify which you're required to upload. The form will ask you to upload 1 document at a time. Your governing document, accounts and project plan are mandatory. Your governing document should include the following: the legal name and aims of your organisation, a statement that prevents your organisation from distributing income or property to its members during its lifetime, a statement which confirms that if your organisation is wound up or dissolves, the organisation's assets will be distributed to another charitable or not-for-profit organisation and not to the organisation's members, the date when it was adopted, and the signature of your chairperson or other authorised person. We won't accept your application if your governing document doesn't include all this information, and please make sure your project clearly falls within the objectives of your organisation. We don't need to see your governing document if you're a public organisation, for example, a local authority, or you're a private owner of heritage.
We ask you to include your most recent audited or accountant verified accounts. If you're a newly formed organisation and don't have a set of audited accounts, please submit your last 3 bank statements or a letter from your bank confirming that you have opened an account. Again, we do not need your accounts if you're a public organisation, for example, a local authority. Top tip from our application checks team: make sure to use your organisation's full legal name, and that's the same across all your application, including governing documents and accounts. Your project plan and risk register are a logical explanation of all the things you'll do to deliver your project and how you'll manage the risks. Please use the Excel template we provide on our website, or remember to include all the information that we ask for in that template if you create your own. It's highly likely that you'll need job descriptions or briefs, as there might be people carrying out tasks during your project. These are the most consistently forgotten supporting documents. It's also highly likely that you'll have evidence of support from the consultation we suggest you do. So in short, remember to upload all the mandatory documents. That's the governance document, your accounts and project plan. And be clear on whether you need to submit any other documents, like job descriptions, brief, or partnership agreement. If you don't submit all of the required documents, our checks team will have to chase you, which will delay the assessment of your application.
That almost brings us to the end of the video. But just to recap the 3 main takeaways. It's essential to take into account all 4 investment principles. Make sure you evidence the need and demand for your project. In the application form itself, your project plan, supporting evidence, anywhere you can. And please remember that if you don't submit all the mandatory supporting documents, it can delay your application.
Some more general tips to keep in mind. Try to write clearly and don't use jargon. Try to be as straightforward as you can when describing what your project is about and how you're going to deliver it.
Our application forms have word counts for questions, which helps indicate where we expect a longer answer. Make sure that your answers fit within each limit. It's a good idea to work on your application answers in advance, in a Word document for example, and then copy and paste them into the application form. This means you'll be able to share the task of writing it and have a backup of the answers.
And finally, writing an application takes time and patience. Get other people who will be involved in the project to help you. Take breaks and come back to it with fresh eyes. A critical friend or someone who isn't involved in the project at all might be able to give you feedback on what you've written from an outsider's perspective. Remember to explore the resources and guidance on our website that we've signposted. And before submitting your application, check that you've included all the information and documents that we need.
And most importantly, good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
We look forward to receiving your application.
When I got the phone call that we had been successful with our application, the person who rang me, I was just overwhelmed. I said to her, I felt like I was going to cry.
I'm very proud of my own heritage as a son of the Rhondda, and one of the great things about the project for me was the increased confidence and pride it gave so many Rhondda people in the value and significance of their own history.
We were super excited to receive the funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. We live on Hadrian's Wall, and what this project has enabled us to do is work with communities and focus on the people that have lived on the wall, including Delia during the 1970s.
Our Heritage Fund grants have given a tremendous boost to our volunteers, have had a really positive impact on the support received from our members, and they have opened the door to support from other grant funders.
So don't be afraid, but ask lots of questions, listen carefully and read all you can. It will transform your organisation.